Peace and welcome to the Big House Breakdown. This is the show for you NCAA college football maniacs and fans of the A2 crew. That's right, the Michigan Wolverines. And they had a decided smash off win versus the Central Michigan Chippewas by the score of 63-3. So that's what we're here for today. Usually I would give my whole spiel about the landscape of college football, all of the exciting, wins and losses and how they played out throughout the weekend. But for now, and I hope you can still hear me pretty legibly and audibly, this is what we're here for today. We're here for this review of the Michigan and Central Michigan game, as it were, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what I mean? So we're going to get into it in a minute. We are going to get into it in a minute. But before we do that, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you guys are turning on all your notifications and you're sharing this to everybody you know. Give me a comment. Give me some juice to set me loose. You know what I mean? We again once again for the dance as Michigan advances to a great big win over Central Michigan Chippewas 63-3. There are some outstanding performances that we want to get into. First, we want to thank sponsors, Total Package Energy. We want to thank Bats Footwear. We also want to thank Redeem Vacations. Check them out online. And also, make sure that you're checking out all the Real HD Network television shows, Sage Dragon Book Club, Broadcast Beats. You want to check out the Real HD show. And you also want to check out in the bonus a hoop show for hoop heads. We had a great episode yesterday. Check us out there. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a subscribe, and light it up in the messages. Let us know what we're doing great, what we're doing bad, what you would like to see for every show. But for right now, what we're going to do though is we're going to get into a little more of the big win of over Central Michigan by the Michigan Wolverines. I quoted the score already, so now let's get into details. Bryce Underwood threw for over 200 yards, a tutty. He ran for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. You got Justice Haynes ran for over 100 yards and a touchdown, and also you had Jordan Marshall had 2 touchdowns on the ground as well in the power game. And outstandingly, Jay Sean Barham had 2 sacks to lead the Michigan defense at that stand-up linebacker position off the edge. So that's becoming a slow, really powerful weapon for the team, and I hope it continues. Okay, putting my notes up, right? If I remember right, toward what was going on in the breakdown last Friday of the game, the blue chip ratio, of talent on the team showed itself out, right? It showed itself to be everything that it needed to be. It showed itself that Michigan was the more talented team. And then, of course, over time, that Central Michigan line, couldn't manufacture what it needed to be as, stout and block the way they needed to at the point of attack so that they would keep Michigan at bay. I basically broached that subject after watching game film on them. They had a lot of deficiencies at guard, at tackle, all kinds of things were going on with them that weren't right and exact, and it showed itself out. It showed itself to be what it was supposed to be. The better team with the blue chip ratio prevailed, right? So let's get into it, man. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's get into the ugly first. Let's do the ugly first because we know the outcome of the game. It was Michigan Smash, 63-3. That was the pop off. So now let's get into that was the action and the result, outcome, if you will. Now let's get into the ugly. Okay, and we'll work our way up to the good because the good is always, can you Feel a brand new day. It's, everybody wants to dance and celebrate, but there are things to clean up. There are things to talk about, and there are things that are super worth noting. The ugly. First, our cornerbacks have to be more steady defenders versus the long ball. I'm talking about, Zach Berry, Jair Hill, and whoever our nickel turns out to be. It looks like we're still kind of deciding that, we'll put Metcalf there, we'll put the other Metcalf there. Sometimes we'll put, uh, uh, you know, certain figures in there. You know, Jaden Sanders will get a spin. All kinds of people have broached that position, but no one has solidified it. And that's a very important position to solidify because those are going to be your most dangerous receivers, your slot receivers, your tight ends, your running backs up seams. That's where your most dangerous weapons are going to come from on the field that give you your bigger gains as the season and as these games matriculate. And also, tackling better in zone coverage. Now, we did that a lot better this week against a, Chippewa's team that was undermanned or overmanned versus Michigan, undermanned according to them, right? And certainly we could be better in that department. PFF only rated us in the 60s for our corners, and other teams will see that and pick on that, scout that for following games. And, we don't need that smoke. We don't need people just like launching moon balls like John Mateer just because we don't have that great of a cornerback rating. Maybe they think they can get away with one and flip the field. Okay, special teams. Another point, special teams. Special teams operations have to improve. They have to improve. When you got gimme kicks in the middle of the field or on a hash, and I'm not saying Zavada's not a good kicker. He's an excellent kicker. But you got to make those. And also, because those will matter against the bigger teams, the Ohio States, the Washingtons, the USCs. Those are going to matter, right? Those are going to matter when you're trying to keep pace with a team with a dynamic offense. And it's also going to matter in terms of how you keep pace within, one or two scores within a game so your defense doesn't feel like they have to do everything under the sun to keep you in the game. Also, we got to figure out our kick return game. Now, I don't have a problem with our kick return unit itself, but our punt return unit sucks. You can, as a blocker, you have to be cognizant of where your kick returner is, and as a kick returner, you have to be cognizant of where your blocking is. You guys can't look like the Keystone Cops bumping into each other, possibly causing fumbles and all kinds of other mayhem simply because you're not identifying spacing and you're not being as stout in the point of attack with blocking, because that's really where that comes from. That comes from not being stout at the point of attack and blocking, letting your man push you back into your punt returner. That's a no-go. That is an absolute no-go. And that's going to show itself versus other teams. Other teams may cough and kick you. They may force you into situations where you have to do something dynamic in your punt return game, and Michigan has to improve upon that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you put Jordan Young back there. Maybe you put, Andrew Marsh, somebody else. Samaj seems to be really getting better at the receiver tree, the route tree, and getting out there and being more of a receiver this year. So I say let him concentrate on that and give one of the young boys, one of the young bulls that don't have a lot of responsibility, give them that responsibility and the fresh legs. Who knows? They might bust one open, take it to the house. You never know. And we have to be able to flip the field. We have to flip the field with special teams. Punt return has to be a weapon for a primary run team and a team that's trying to really get more electric with its passing game. So that means there's going to be a lot of scheming and experimenting with what works in the passing game this year. You got to be able to give the offense a short field. You gotta do it. There's just no exception. There's no, it's just not acceptable that you can't give the offense 10 yards or more per each punt return. Gotta be able to do that. And at the very least, maintain possession so that you can be better, so that you can give your offense a clean starting position after a good defensive stand. So special teams has got to improve if we want to go down to Lincoln, Nebraska next week and beat that team. We got to be better. We got to be crisper. Got to be working on that. Get on the jugs. Make it happen. Get these boys ready. All right. And also, lastly, the D-line. I'm sorry, the O-line. Despite the injury shuffle, they have to manufacture a clean pocket for Bryce to throw into, or he's going to get happy feet. And you have to be able to manufacture tough yards with Haynes and Marshall. You got to be able to manufacture in that center guard triangle. You got to be able to push the pile a little bit. We got to see them dudes going forward. And we did, but not at the dominating pace that I would have liked it. And you can tell that if the blue chip ratio was higher, the talent ratio was higher per team, like we might have seen, like we're going to see this week, and like we saw in Norman, Oklahoma, the result may not be the same. So, did we look a lot more cohesive than we did the week before? Yes. Do we have a lot to improve on? Yes. And it'd be cool if we get some people back from injury, but if not, stay cohesive, get as cohesive as possible with the unit that's out there. Practice that short yardage. Get that together. Practice giving Bryce a clean pocket. Get that together. The second unit on offense and defense, when they practice, they got to give the starters a great look. If you don't give the starters a great look, they'll come into the game, under practiced, overwhelmed, and it'll show. So the O-line has to perform to their, like I said earlier, to their credit. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. It's the injury shuffle. Yeah, they're doing an injury shuffle. But there's a lot of teams doing the same thing. Oklahoma played 3 freshmen on their offensive line simply because some of their upperclassmen were hurt. So every team has some sort of shuffling of their personnel that they're doing. That's nothing new. That's football. Take it or leave it. But the O-line has to be more cohesive and show it versus bigger and more talented opponents. All right, so now let's get into the ugly. The ugly of it all. So I watched the game twice. I watched it from a highlight perspective. I watched it from a game perspective twice. Of course, O-line errors. We just talked about that. Other teams can scout these things and put the O-line into pressure situations where Bryce won't have the opportunity to read the field. That's very important for him because he's kind of 60-40 with that right now. He knows what he's looking at when he's looking at it. But when he doesn't have a chance to look at it and it's moving too fast or he feels under pressure, then he makes reads that are very vanilla, very within the scope of the playbook. We want him to get to his third check down and even run it. We want him to go through his progression, get to his third read, check down, or run it. We want him to be able to do those things. Is that going to happen every play? No. But in, big down and distance, crucial down and distance, we want to give him a clean pocket so he can do that. So O-line errors have to be corrected. All right, now this is something that a lot of people, because of Bryce threw over 200 yards this week, not a lot of, talking bobbleheads are giving this a lot of say, and that's yards after catch. Yards after catch have to improve, even in a dominant win. Yards after catch is not what it's supposed to be. We have to secure the ball, put it away, make a move like a polished receiver to get yards after the catch. We got to average 5 to 7 yards after catch. Bryce can't do it all with his legs. I knew that's the new feature, right, of Michigan football. Bryce doing it with his legs. We had JJ doing it with his legs, but now we got Bryce. But our receivers, if Bryce knows you're going to do it with your legs, he doesn't have to be Rambo with the football. He doesn't have to run out there and scramble out of every difficult situation. He can throw the check down. He can throw the comeback. He could throw the drag route all the way to the boundaries. And you're going to make something after the catch. You're going to get 5, 7, 15. You're going to let your athleticism do better things for you. So we need Goodwin to get more after the catch. We need Donovan McCulley to get more after the catch. And we need Samaj to get more after the catch. But you know what's interesting? Our best receiver at getting more after the catch, which is Frederick Moore, isn't really getting that much burn because of the dropsies. So hopefully he picks the pieces up from that and is able to get on the field and show the receivers how to get more after the catch. Donovan McCulley is a big dude. He should be throwing these small corners off like rag dolls and getting 5 to 7 after each catch, you know? Especially when you got your back facing the DB and on a comeback route or a middle route or a high-low route, you should be getting more yak after the catch. We did well with pressure on the QB. This is for the defensive line now. We did well with pressure on the QB, but we have to be able to sustain sacks, not just pressure, but sacks. I know pressure is the name of the game. I get it, but toward the end of the game, and early third quarter, when you need to flip momentum and you need to get that offense back on the field to chew up clock or add another score, you need to provide sacks on the quarterback. Get these teams into third and longs where you can bring Jayshon Barham off the edge, or you can or you can put him in coverage. And that's when we're really good. That's when Wink Martindale can really dial up and scheme up and make a way for the defense to be superb. When we were picking off the ball with in our championship run in 23 with Mikey Sanders still, it was when we were able to drop 7 and get pressure with 4. That's when we were at our best. And we get to turn that nickel into a robber corner, roll coverage, and he's right up underneath to make that pick. Quarterback never saw him. So we got to be able to get pressure and sacks with 4 defensive linemen. Bryce needs to be more consistent with his reads. Now, I'm a Bryce fan, but I'm not. I'll have my head in the sand. I'm not going to jump around and act like Bryce had a flawless game. He threw a pick, and he probably should have threw 2 picks based on what he did on that first throw of the game. Should have threw 2 picks. Now, that would have been a disappointing game for him if that happened. He's got to read the field better. So that also, like I said earlier, O-line's got to give him more time. But Bryce has to be able to see what those corners are in and what those linebackers are in before we throw the ball. Now, how do you do that? You create motion. That's how you do that. Take Samaj, put him in motion, and now you know what they're in. A zone look, a man look, you know what I'm saying? And you got to know if they're in 2, 3 quarters, rolling coverage, you got to know what they're doing. And you got to be able to read it and diagnose it well. Now, Bryce did that in the first game pretty well. Second game, he did not do it well. And no crap analysis, just getting after this. The talking bobbleheads think it was all about Bryce not using his legs in the first game. No, it was not. The issue with Bryce in the first game is that the moment was a little too big. And he wasn't reading the field. Not that he was scared, but he wasn't reading the field the way he should have been reading the field. And you can't read the field on zone read runs, and you can't read the field on coverages if you can't calm yourself down enough to see the play, get a motion going on, read the defense, see where the Jokers and the Raiders are coming from, and act accordingly as a quarterback. Now, maybe they're taking the chains off game by game, letting him read the pre-snap reads. Maybe that was this week versus Oklahoma. But he's got to be able to read the field better against a bigger opponent. You can't throw interceptions on the first drive, and you can't throw interceptions in the middle of the game. That will be, that'll be your ass, Mr. Postman. Can't do it. So, and they can't trust you to do zone reads and read option, and for you to run with the ball as a quarterback if we don't know you're making the right reads. Because now we got to know if your head is in the right space to make great decisions with the football. So that's the reason why in the first game, Sharon Moore put the leash on. He's like, yeah, he don't see it. And I think that was a headset decision by him and Chip Lindsey. We got to play this game conservatively, stay in the game, because Bryce is not seeing it. And that's fine. He's a young quarterback. He's a dynamite sensation. He's going to do his thing just like he did, against Central Michigan, running all over the place, throwing all over the place, leading his team, giving you that energy. He's going to do that. But he has to show you that he could read the field. That is a big deal for first-year starting quarterbacks. And you can't make it all up in athleticism. Athleticism does not help you take the place of reading the field correctly, whether you're reading it on zone reads for the option, quarterback runs, design runs, or if you're reading it in the passing game. You got to be able to calm down, calm your system down, not think the moment is too big or get too hyper in it that you want to make something happen and make mistakes. Now they let him loose this week. They let him do his thing. And we're going to talk about that in the good section. We're still in the bad section. So Bryce has to be able to read the field better. So right now I give him a 65 on reading the field. That 35 though is crucial because depending on the bad read that you make, you don't want to do it in the wrong football scenario. You don't want to do it on the wrong down and distance in the wrong time of the field, wrong point of the game. That's going to give a team a lot of mo, and they're going to come out and do some ill things and put your team in a bad position to lose. So Bryce, go back to the film room, grade yourself honestly, and even though you did some great athletic things this week that you should have done, grade yourself on your football IQ and what you were able to amass that way. Because the blue chip ratio of team to team, it was supposed to happen that way. They were supposed to beat the brakes off Central Michigan. Now you're going to get back. Now you're going to get into Big Ten play versus Nebraska. Tougher team, blue chip ratio way up there. We will see if Bryce studies enough, or is he listening, or is he, enjoying the pats on the back too much, where he can read the field and make correct decisions on his reads. Very, very important. Can't stress that enough. I don't know who watches the show. Trying to build back the audience that I had a season and a half ago. Hope you ride with me on that. If you don't, put it in the comments. If you do, put it in the comments. Let me know. Bryce has to calm down and gain the skill of reading the field better. Now, don't get me wrong. He did some great things this week. He read the field. He made some checks in certain down and distances, moved it into some run plays out of some pass plays. But he's got to do a better job. He's got to increase that. He's got to increase that 35% that he's missing. Turn that into more like 15%. If we can get 15% mistakes out of reads this week, we win the game. 15 to 10% mistakes out of reads, we win the game against Nebraska. If we have anything more than 15% on those reads, mistakes, oh boy. You might have to play more of a conservative game because then that handcuffs your offensive coordinator and what he can call versus what he can't call on the field. Okay. What else do we have in the bad? We talked about the O-line. We talked about yards after catch. We talked about getting home with 4. We talked about Bryce reading the field and Bryce studying up. And I think he's that type of dude. I think he's a studier. They said he's the first one in the building, last one out of the building. So I believe he does that. Let's get into the good. The good is very easy. Run game is on Smash. All the Michigan running backs that played got in the end zone, including the quarterback. Bryce Underwood diversifying his offensive attack was great to see, using his athleticism to be to keep the defense on their toes. They didn't know if he was going to run, pass, design run, short run, roll out. The rollouts helped to keep the linebackers home. The running helped the DBs to pull up short and open up the receivers downfield. Great thing to see. He has to get more like a Vince Young approach, which is you're rolling out to open up the passing game and simplifying the game by cutting off half of the field, and now you only have two reads up the field in a high-low situation. But that was great. I'm not criticizing. I love the diversity in his offensive attack this week. Wide receiver involvement, better wide receiver involvement this week. Samaj Morgan looked good. He contributed with a tutty. Goodwin looked good. Our tight ends supplementing the running game. Passing game looked good. We just got to get more yards after the catch. I can't complain about what our receivers are doing. We just got to get more yards after the catch. We did that well in the first week. I'd like to see us improve upon that next week. D-line cohesion, very good. We tackled the run really well. We gave a lot of pressure on passing downs, really, really good. And Central Michigan's quarterback by committee paid for that. Our consistent pressure with our D-line. We just got to get home. We got to get home so we make our most explosive defensive weapon, which is Jay Sean Barham, we make him an enigma. You don't know where he's coming from. He's coming from up the gut. He's coming from off the edge. He's dropping back in coverage. You don't know where he's coming from or what he's doing, which is why it's crucial that we get D-line cohesion and D-line fire on every defensive series. O-line improved play. Yeah, they improved. They improved. I could see that group made a decision that they were overall going to have a better game this week. And for all intended purposes, they did. Not going to say much more about that because I talked about them in the bad and the ugly section. We got to have that improvement continue so that Bryce Underwood can grow under this Michigan system. Because I do think that him and Chip Lindsey do have a simpatico. They do have a chemistry. They do have a coordination with one another. But of course, if you don't have an offensive line that gives you time, boom. So let's give them time. The dynamic tight end play supplements the passing game. Yep. Really good. Hogan Hansen made a contribution. And in my preview show, I said it was Hogan Hansen that Bryce missed on that wheel route. It was Zach Marshall. So I stand corrected. Just want to make sure I make that correction. But Hogan Hansen did have a high point ball this week that was pretty to look at. And he contributed really well to the passing game. And Marlon Klein played as well. Perfect bounce back game for Michigan, actually. We needed this. I'm not sure if we had to play Nebraska this week if the outcome would have been the same. But this was a good confidence booster, bounce back game. Really good. Looks like the O-line is getting stronger with every snap. Now the coaching staff. Seemed like Bryce had a lot more of a kind of calmer demeanor this week, a more go-get-em demeanor this week. And everybody wants to say that the coaches took the cuffs off. That's cool. I just think that, they said against a lesser opponent, let's let Bryce kind of do his thing. Might have been some pressure from some donors as well. Coaching staff can learn to use Bryce athleticism, yes. So Bryce showed some really dynamic athleticism, was the leading rusher on the team. Now, I don't mind if he contributes to the rushing game, but I don't know if he should be the leading rusher on the team with those amount of touchdowns. I think his value is in the passing game and in rolling out of the pocket. What I did like about what Bryce did this week was he was a lot more controlled. He had a lot more body control when he rolled out of the pocket, stepped into his throws a lot more instead of throwing off platform when he rolled out, and that made all the difference. Of course, Jayshon Barham continues to be the monster on defense. We need to rename that floating linebacker position into the monster position. 2 sacks, lots of tackles. I think he had maybe 2 or 3 TFLs. And Michigan's pressure as a D line was really, really good. We just got to get there, get home with the sacks. So I'm gonna keep it there for now. We'll end this review off with that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Love what Michigan did this week. Michigan Smash, Wolverine Smash. Go Blue. We need to see the same confidence, cohesion, and decision making this week. Go Blue. We out. Like, share, subscribe.